Hello and welcome to Coffee with Jenny B. It's conversations over coffee about community and connections. It's about what brings me joy and everything in between. I'm your host, Jenny Sacco-Bak. When I was a little girl, I remember gathering with my mother, my grandmother, my aunties, and we would sit around the table making pierogies, doing canning. I remember my dad used to go to the forest and pick mushrooms and bring them back, and we would sit all around and clean the mushrooms, and crafting and basically anything that needed to be done on a bigger scale. We all sat around the table, and while we were doing it, we would tell stories. The little ones would listen to the mothers and the grandmothers telling stories. And it was a beautiful time of connection and feeling that sense of community. And I know that it's somewhat fallen by the wayside, partly because of COVID and being restricted and so on. But also part of it is that we're so busy now that even to make a coffee date with someone requires a lot of planning. And so for me personally, I love the idea of being able to get back to that sense of community and to really connect with each other again. My guest today is someone who is a specialist, if you will, in terms of community and gathering, creating circles, especially for women. She's a mentor, a speaker, a facilitator of workshops, and a lover of a creative life. My guest is Liliane Régnier, and I would like to welcome Liliane. Hello.
Hi, Jenny. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. I'm so pleased that you were able to come and share your story with us. Now, it gave a little bit of introduction to you, but you have a special way of introducing yourself when you are either doing a talk or at one of your workshops. So share with us what your introduction is.
Sure, I'd love to. So I'm Liliane Régnier, daughter of Elise, granddaughter of Mathilde and Cécile, and mother of Jasmine and Anne-Sophie.
Oh, that's so lovely. Now, why was it important for you to be able to introduce yourself that way?
I believe that when we acknowledge, when we name the names of a few women that have come before us and after us in some cases, it's a way for us to acknowledge their lives, their presence, and their impact on our life.
That's lovely. Now, it goes a little bit deeper than that, doesn't it? Does it apply to how you're connecting with yourself as well?
Absolutely. And I feel, for me, this connection with myself and with my elders started when I was a little girl. Also, as you mentioned, every Sunday, I grew up Catholic, so every Sunday we would gather around the table for the entire afternoon, the grandmothers, my sisters, my mother, and some of my aunties, of course, and we would be crafting or doing whatever. And those afternoons ended up going by much too fast to my liking. And they turned out to be one of the most significant moments of my childhood. And the reason is that there was deep respect and acceptance amongst everyone.
Mm-hmm. I love the idea of seeing you, sitting around the table. And, I grew up Catholic as well. And so Sundays was always church. And then after church, it was Sunday dinner. And then typically, depending on the season, we would go visiting, we would go out together and go to the park. Or if it was closer to Christmas, we would go visit family. Mm-hmm. And so it was always being able to do things together. Yeah, so very special.
Nice. Yeah, and I think now there is, a lack of those types of gatherings. Like you said, we have to really plan ahead in order to meet, whether it's family members or friends. And so my goal is really having women connect back into community, to one another, and to themselves, of course, through my work.
Of course. Mm. Now, when did you come up with the idea that this is something that you wanted to do? Because I know that you've had a number of interests, different ways, different careers, so to speak, that I don't know if you wanted to touch on a little bit before telling us how you got started with your workshops.
Sure. I come from a background of over 20 years as a doula. Mm. And that work came about after having had a couple miscarriages and having had to find, when I was pregnant finally for the third time, I was looking into all ways to support a healthy pregnancy. I ended up at the Kripalu Yoga Center for Yoga and Health, for an incredible prenatal yoga teacher training, and it changed my life. It was key in helping me heal the emotional wounds around my miscarrying. And I was able to connect so deeply with the women that were there. Like, meaningful connections were happening so quickly. And I realized, okay, when just being in a room with women in that way, I felt so empowered. And so coming back home, then that's what led me also to do my own. I had a successful home birth, and it was like, okay, I want to be, a doula. Mm-hmm. And from there, it led me to evolve into having workshops for women also, knowing that those women that had delivered babies needed community. And now it's evolved into helping women through all stages of life, not only pre and postpartum, but all phases of life.
And I want to touch on what you mentioned about the all phases of life, because I know that there's the maiden, and then sort of at the end of, not end of life, but sort of third act of life is the crone. But what's going on in the middle? So there's a lot in terms of, being married and having children and all the rest of it. So how does that fit in with between the maiden and the crone?
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. The new mothers, they need so much support. And then we've got women that are middle-aged, maybe changing careers or wanting a new career change, and they're needing support, and they're living through perimenopause and menopause. So we've got all of these different times of transition and phases in which all need support. So for me, gathering women of all ages is key, because our older women, like you mentioned, the crones, are elders. And we need them to be stepping into their roles in order to support our maidens and our young mothers and our middle-aged women, right? So for me, that sharing of wisdom and knowledge, I believe no matter your education, your age, your culture, you have so much knowledge to share.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Now, can you tell us a little bit about all the different workshops that you offer?
Sure. So for example, I just had one last Thursday. It was on authentic confidence and self-worth. And so what I do is I create different themes. Another one is embracing natural changes. So then we're really diving deep into those different phases. I have an upcoming one called the Magical Intuitive Painting Workshop for Women, which is not about the outcome. A lot of people think, I can't attend, I'm not an artist. But it's for everyone, and for women of all ages again, because it's trying to connect to what's going on here and bringing that onto canvas. And so like I tell them, every painting of mine looks different because it's intuitive. It doesn't matter. You can show up, and I have an example of someone who had come to a workshop, and she ended up using one of the branches, because I had a vase of natural things I had picked from our yard, from our property, and she had ended up using a branch to paint her entire painting. And it was incredible. She felt drawn to something from nature in order to bring that onto canvas, And so really these workshops are fun, and so for everyone. So those are examples, the painting ones. And then, those would be some of the main themes that I offer. Would be the embracing changes, the confidence, the painting.
I've actually been to one of your gatherings, and I really enjoyed the experience. But what I really loved is how you set the scene for all of. Now, do you do the same thing for all of your workshops? Or does it vary depending on what the workshop is all about?
It does vary. And I forgot to mention, I do have a playfulness workshop, which is really fun. We do some laughter yoga and coloring, and it's just a really light and fun workshop, which I like to offer sometimes just before Christmas to lighten things up.
Exactly, right?
Before the busy seasons come. So that's a really fun one. But so depending on the theme, it changes a bit. But I always have some breath work. I always have some movement. I like to have a visualization, a guided visualization, and always time for sharing. Like, that is really key. That first hour is guiding, and then that last half hour is a sharing of our experiences there, or if something came up for someone, something's going on in their life relating to what we talked about, an exercise or so. And in these places, I try to really create a safe space for women. So people always have a choice, and I make that clear that you don't have to share. I've had women attend 4 or 5 times before they open up and want to share anything. Others, it's from the first time. There is no judgment. It's a very supportive, creative space to just be ourselves.
And that's so important, because I know for some of us, We want that safe space because, we're afraid to share our personal stories, and not even so much being afraid to share them, but it's also being afraid to talk about it, because sometimes we're just so traumatized by either recent events or even our childhood, and sometimes that trauma can come and appear out of nowhere, and then we're back to being that little girl who went through all those tough times, right? And so being able to do that in a safe space without judgment and with a sense of compassion, with empathy, with the idea of sharing, because we're all in together, so we've got a nice circle of connection, if you will.
Exactly. Yes. And that's it. And if we don't have those opportunities, to just sit and be with other women and have those open conversations, when do we get to heal those kinds of things? And to me, I believe when we practice the art of really seeing each other in this way, by gathering meaningfully, this is how we heal ourselves, each other, our families, our communities, and humanity, really.
Yes. I love, I want to go back to the way that you introduce yourself. Now, in your workshops, do you get the women as well who want to introduce themselves in the same manner? Or does it depend on the workshop, or does it depend on the women, whether they want to do that? So what are your thoughts on that?
You know what? Every workshop, I introduce myself in that way, and I always give them the option to. And so some choose to, some don't. And what I do also in some of my workshops is offer the red thread ritual, which sometimes creates even a more inviting space in order for them to share in that way. And what the red thread ritual is, well, the red thread is a global symbol, let's say, for protection, blessing, connection. So I use it to support, as a symbol of connection and amongst all the women present. And when we're holding this red thread, it's an opportunity for them, because it's the color red. I always think, okay, it's the color of blood, it's our lineage. So having the women think about women from their lineage, and it gives them a longer opportunity to maybe think about women from their past. And I always say it doesn't have to be their mother or grandmother. It could be an auntie, it could be an aunt, an uncle, or a friend, or a family acquaintance or so. Somebody that was really meaningful to them in a positive way. And so then after the red thread, that's oftentimes women are really ready to introduce themselves in that way if they wish to do so.
Yes. And I know that you offer other ways of being able to connect either with each other or with ourselves. So do you use journaling? And I know you mentioned about the painting, but what other methods do you use that allow women the opportunity to really express themselves and to start sharing?
Yeah, for sure. There's the journaling, lots of reflection, time for reflection. There's an exercise called the vocal toning, which is a very powerful exercise, which I used for many years with my birthing clients, and now I'm using with every single woman I get to work with. And it's an opportunity for women to use their voice. And what it is we have a neuromuscular connection between the throat and the pelvis. So when we're able to make a sound, just like a low primal sound, like a vowel sound, this is a way for us to start creating an opening in our bodies. And that also gives us an opportunity to learn how to amplify our voices, because it's so surprising and so sad that so many women don't like to hear their voice at all. So this is really an opportunity to start slowly connecting with yourself on a deeper way. So that would be an example.
Okay. Can you give us a demonstration of what that would be like?
Okay, sure. So we would start with the AH sound, and then the MM sound, and then each vowel. Okay, so I think I'll just do the AH sound. Okay, so I would have everyone close their eyes, and we'd inhale together, a nice deep inhale. And on the exhalation, we would do an ah.
Okay, and then go through each of the vowels.
Yes, so we'd go through each vowel once, and also the MM sound. If a woman is not comfortable having her mouth open, we would just do an
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a tool that I used a lot with accompanying women in labor. Through every contraction, we'd be toning, and now we use it I use it at a lot of my workshops and in my one-on-one work also.
Well, and even just doing it, like even just like I can feel the vibration in my lips and feeling the vibration in my body. So it's basically waking your body up, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And
it's very powerful. Yes.
And I can imagine, I mean, there's just the two of us doing it right now,
yes.
but
so
imagine a room full of women, everyone's doing it together.
Exactly. And then you can combine it with visualizations. And I've been gifted a Native American drum, so I can do a little bit of drumming. And then while we're toning, and so there's layers, to deepen the practice.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you use also tarot cards or angel cards during some of your workshops?
You know what? I always have a deck of cards, that I have out for people, if they're wanting that. But it's not something that I use specifically necessarily. Okay. But I like to have them. I like to use them. But it's not something, that they're there if people are open to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I also love about your workshops is that you incorporate all the different elements during your workshop. So you set up, I want to call it an altar, but maybe it's an altar or a display of what you want us to be a part of during your workshop. So tell us a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, the environment is always so important, to create a space that is inviting and warm. And so it starts with, first of all, the things that I feel so connected to. And for me, Gaia, Mother Earth, is so important to me. And every day I have to connect with her in order to feel like I can better serve women. So I always bring elements of nature with me, rocks and branches and leaves, feathers, that kind of thing. And then I also have candles, and I have the oracle cards. I'll have, some meaningful things sometimes that have been gifted to me. I have a friend who has a chronic condition, and she can't get to my workshops, and she's gifted me stones. And so I always make sure to have them there because she's there with me, through those and that kind of thing. Is what I have.
I love that, because it makes you feel comfortable. I mean, as soon as you walk in, you've got, the lights are low and you've got the candles and it's just, as you mentioned, inviting. It's inviting for us to come in and sit down and just feel that sense of relaxation. Mm-hmm. And I know that at one of your workshops that I was at, you were offering cacao. So tell us about why that was important to incorporate that during that workshop.
Yeah, well, that was part of a summer solstice celebration, and I was actually co-facilitating with a dear friend, Gina Navajo, and she's the one who decided to bring the cacao into that ceremony because for her, as a tradition, it's very important. It's very heart-opening. So she, really talked in detail about it, and I was able to guide heart-opening meditation that went along with the cacao. So it just added another element, right? Because I will often serve tea at the end of my workshops, mm-hmm. and this was just something different. And that's what I've been loving is lately I've been collaborating with different women. I just had, it was called the Gaia Renewal Retreat at Fort White Alive. Mm. And it was just this beautiful setting at Fort White. And we offered, one was doing crystal bowls. I did an intuitive art practice with the women, and the other gal introduced, the Ikigai practices, and it was just so much fun.
Oh, it sounds amazing. I'm sorry I missed it because, getting back to being busy, right? There's just so many things you can do.
Of course. And that's probably one of the most challenging things, right? As a business owner for myself, to try to market my events and workshops so people really understand, the experience, they're paying for an experience, right?
Mm-hmm. And you know what? An experience, I think, is more important than a product, just something that you can buy and then use it once versus having an experience, something that you can really hone in and really have it reach deep inside and heal those areas that perhaps need it. Or maybe it's not even so much about healing, it's about connecting with ourselves and having a sense, okay, maybe we might be struggling in terms of what do I do next? You talked about the crone, so the elders, that third act of life, and thinking, okay, so, the kids are gone, or I'm divorced or widowed, or there's some sort of a life change for me. And if I don't have a sense of direction, so what do I do now? It's an opportunity for us to find it, and not necessarily find it through you, but it's almost like you're a conduit in a sense of allowing us to come to that realization ourselves in terms of what direction we'd like to go. Or even if we don't decide, being satisfied and content with the idea, okay, I don't need to decide right now, but eventually it is going to come to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I say. Like, I don't see myself as, an expert, because I feel, we all have so much wisdom and knowledge to share, like I said earlier. So for me, it's facilitating these opportunities for women. I see myself as a bridge, often a connector between women, and just watching the connections form in front of my eyes, and the growth that happens after having worked with someone, one-on-one, let's say for 12 weeks, and to see their being able to step out of their comfort zone and to try new things, maybe leave that job that's been, a real struggle for them, for the, on their health and so forth. And just watching that unfold is such a gift for me. Honestly, I just love what I do.
Well, and you're very good at it.
Oh, thank you, Jenny.
Well, you're just so compassionate, and I just that warmth, and that goes a long way to help someone feel welcomed and, connected and accepted. We all want that sense of being accepted and valued and seen, because so many of us, ageism, right? We tend to be not ignored, but we're almost invisible. And to have someone say, I see you, I want you to be seen as well.
Yes, and I often tell women, for example, if there's a confidence workshop, some women have told me, oh, but I already feel really confident. So I tell them, well, come anyway, come model confidence for others, right? How did you get there, right? Come share your story, that kind of thing.
Well, it's funny because, I couldn't go last Thursday. I wasn't able to, but I thought the same thing. It's like, oh, well, I've got confidence. I don't need to go and learn.
Right, but being in a room, and there was a couple for sure that I could sense, they already had a good sense of confidence, but just their presence there for the others, that helps lift each other up, right? So that's the thing. It's not just about us, right? It's not just about our own benefit from the experience, but how can we bring ourselves there to show up for others, right? To make sure and that to me is also the art of seeing one another, right? Like valuing, making sure a woman feels seen, heard, supported. How? Well, maybe through eye contact, and there's ways, and
and even being role models. We're role models for our daughters, right?
Yes.
And then for the granddaughters and so on and so forth. And so we can be role models for others that perhaps are feeling a little lost. And maybe, so for instance, for me, starting to teach Zumba at the age of 50, and maybe someone else thinking, well, maybe I can't do it because I'm too old. But then, oh, well, you can do it, so maybe I can too. Exactly. So it's really sharing those experiences.
Absolutely. And like we talked about, the older women in our communities, it's so important for them to be stepping into their roles as elders, right? Because, we see the Native American traditions, that's so important. And I think a lot of us have lost those connections with our grandmothers and great-grandmothers. And, there's so many lessons there. So as women, as older women in our communities, I think it's that much more important for us to step into our roles as elders and be there for our younger generations.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, community to me is the antidote to loneliness and so many things,
Absolutely. Now, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, you had offered a series of workshops. And it was, it was the maiden, then the mother, and then the crone.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And now, it wasn't necessary that you had to take all three, but it was a nice way of thinking about, okay, so what was I like as a maiden, then as a mother, and then now getting into sort of the third act of my life. Is that something that you would think about maybe bringing back again?
I might, actually. It's interesting that you brought it up, because just this morning I was talking to my daughter who's been working for me a little bit. And we were talking about different themes, that we could offer in the new year. And we did not think about that. And see, that was an offering that I had online. And I do know that for a lot of people, they can't get to the workshops, for a lot of reasons. They're out of town or so forth. So that is something that I might bring back, because I know it is a topic that was really popular as well. I remember I called it Becoming Being Blessed for each of those phases.
Yes.
And it's just, it would be another way to just bring back that conversation around those specific stages. And I had made it clear, for example, when we were talking about the mother phase, that wasn't only for women to birth babies, because as women, our superpower is creation. And this is not limited to birthing babies. This is, birthing projects, new ideas, transformation in the world, right? So everyone was welcome, every woman, whether they were mothering a project or a baby, So I'm glad you brought that up, because that could be something for the new year, for sure.
Well, as you were talking, I remembered the series and how much I really enjoyed it. And I loved, even though we were back in person, doing it online allowed you to feel comfortable in your own home. But you weren't, at least for me, I didn't feel isolated that I was in my own home doing this, because I knew that I was a part of a community out there. And even though we weren't in person, I could still feel that you were there for me, just that connection. And it doesn't have to be a physical connection. It's sometimes that spiritual connection.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I feel it's incredible, all the beautiful people I met virtually during COVID. People that I'm still in touch with. And so definitely it doesn't have to be, physical. That's nice, of course, if you can.
Right.
But a virtual, opportunities like that for really nice experiences, and there's beautiful sharings that happened at those gatherings, for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, any workshops, any events that you have planned maybe towards the end of the year? Because I know there's a winter solstice is coming up, and then of course 2025. So can you share about any projects or workshops that you'll be working on?
Yes. Well, right now I have for end of November 30th, it's a Saturday afternoon, I have the Magical Intuitive Painting Workshop for women, and it's actually almost sold out. So I added another date at the end of January. For that one. And for December this year, I'm not going to be doing a solstice ceremony. I decided, because I've been so busy with one-on-one clients as well, so I'm taking December to just take a break from all the workshops and planning, to decide what's going to be in February, March, and April. But I do have ideas. There'll probably be another Gaia renewal retreat either in the spring or next fall. And definitely, something online is something that's really interesting to me as well. But for sure, the Authentic Confidence and Self-Worth Workshop, that one has to come back. It's one of my most, popular and powerful workshops. So, and they have all been selling out actually quite easily, which has been really fun. And
exciting too.
Yes.
Yay.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, even if I'm not super comfortable in this, marketing on social media and so forth, I feel going to networking events and talking about them, it's word of mouth. People...
And really, word of mouth is so important. I mean, yes, social media is absolutely, it's out there, it's getting information out there.
Yes.
It's a way for people to register for your workshops and to learn about them. But it goes far deeper than that, because if someone was at one of your workshops, they're offering comments maybe on social media, or they're telling their friends, oh, you should come to this workshop with me because I learned so much. And you're right, it's just that you're building community one woman at a time.
Absolutely.
And reaching and it's growing, and it's organic, it's authentic. And really, I mean, I think for myself, anytime I force things to happen, it doesn't work that way. But if I just let it grow naturally or as organically and the way that it's supposed to, it is really more special. And it really is more meaningful.
Yes, for sure. And I feel, that's part of my work is I need to show up authentically, because that's what I want women to do, is to reclaim their lives so they can lead and live their lives authentically too, with grounded in purpose and passion. And, so I have to model that. And it's been really nice where, I am meeting people, from our different communities, and I can see, they're commenting, oh, I've been following you for a long time, and I had your workshop on my calendar, but something came up. And so people that I would never have imagined that would be, even paying attention. But now, and I think it is, now I've been in business for almost 4.5 years, in having my own business. The whole doula stuff was before that, but now my own work, and I'm starting to see the rippling effects, of women
Absolutely. And you know what I love about the idea of community? So it's not just the community that you're creating for women, but you like to support different communities in Winnipeg, because I know that you've held your workshops at different locations. You talked about Fort White Alive, and Moliere is at on Mulvey, right?
Yes.
Yes. And so you've had it at a number of different places throughout Winnipeg, and now you also go outside of Winnipeg for a few of your workshops, do you not?
Yes. I was in the community of St. Anne, which is my community, so I offered several workshops there. And like you mentioned, the Fort White, Anne Muller, who I'm also an ambassador for, and she has a beautiful, cozy space there, so we really connect we align on our values, and so I offer there. And I've had requests to offer my workshops in schools for the staff. Mm-hmm. On days for health and wellness days that they have.
Oh, wonderful.
So I'm starting to think that maybe that I could do that as well, but it's just a matter of, there's only so many hours in a day.
and there's only one of you.
Exactly.
But, again, opportunities like that will present themselves, and it'll be a right moment for you to do it.
I think so.
But in the meantime, I like the idea of thinking that it's, who else can I help? And I know that not just teachers, but I know like nurses, basically any woman in any profession, doesn't matter what it is, could use that sense of coming back to herself, regaining that confidence. And sometimes, we're worked so hard and we're almost burnt out, and you have nothing left. And so to have someone say, yes, you do, and I'm here to help you fill your spiritual cup, so to speak, to help heal anything that's going on, and even just to be. I mean, as you say, it's up to the women if they want to share or if they don't want to share. You talked about that woman who came 5 times before she was able to open up. So there's no expectation, no you have to do anything, no judgment. And so sometimes just sitting there in the presence of everyone else is enough
healing.
Right? Give you that sense of peace.
Yes, absolutely. And that's it. And we're all on our journeys, right? Different stages and all living different things. So I help them do all of that spiritual, emotional, physical work, right, around all of those things. Oh,
that's lovely.
Yeah.
So now, how does someone get in touch with you to book a workshop? Social media, is there a website?
Yes, I have a website, so lilianerégnier.com. Do I need to spell that out, or
sure?
Should I? Okay, so Liliane, Régnier, REGNIER.com. So all my information is there. Under the events tab, you see the list there of all the events, and you'll get to know me a little bit more. And you also can learn about my one-on-one transformational program through my website. And you can also get a hold of me on my social media. So I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, so Liliane_Régnier on Instagram and Facebook. Yeah, so that would be
all right.
The ways to get a hold of me.
Absolutely. And of course, we'll include that with the recording, but it's nice to have you actually talk about it, because when you think about, so what am I doing? Where am I? You are everywhere.
I guess so. And LinkedIn is new for me this year. Like I've had an account open for several years, but it's actually active now and updated. So that's been really nice.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Well, thank you so much, Liliane, for being on and sharing your story and sharing the importance of being connected with each other and the importance of community and sharing with each other.
Thank you, Jenny, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure as well. Thank you. I am the daughter of Stella. I am the granddaughter of Stanislava. I am the mother of Crystal, the grandmother of Lenny. This has been Coffee with Jenny B. I am your host, Jenny Sacco-Bak, and this is being aired on the Multicultural channel.